Go.
Hi, my name is Drew Bridges. I'm the author of Billion Dollar Bracket, a fiction novel about basketball, about NCAA March Madness. But that's not what I'm talking about today. I want to talk to you about an underappreciated way of finding out family history, family stories. Now, we all know about DNA and how an assessment of your DNA can help you find out your family's origin, maybe even connect you with relatives you didn't even know about. And that's all fine and good. Same for walking through graveyards, looking at tombstones and finding information there. Same for discovery of public records. Can all be useful, but there's another way. Books. Some families save books from a long time ago. Most people know about a family Bible, where you might have a genealogical family tree. As a matter of fact, I have my mother's father's Bible. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't have a family tree, but it's interesting. It has in the back, this may not show up very well, but in the back there's a little hand drawing of a dove with an olive branch in its mouth. Not sure how well that comes out. Anyway, not that informative, but it's the kind of thing that's interesting. I also have my mother's church book, prayer book. Kind of standard stuff, hymns, psalms, ceremonies, baptisms, all that stuff. Pretty interesting. I have a songbook that a note by my mother in it says it's my great-grandfather's songbook, Reuben Yoder. It's a shape note songbook. Now, if you don't know what a shape note is, Google it. I'm not here to talk about that today, but it's kind of an interesting story. But sometimes it gets even more interesting than that. Here is a book that my grandfather had, my mother's father. He signed it, Oliver McMillan Yoder, February 8th, 1903. I think you can read the title. The Palaces of Sin, or the Devil in Society. Let me read you some of the subtitles. Palaces of Sin, or the Devil in Society. The Crimson Hand of Society Exposed. The Painted Cheek of the Fashionable Hag, smote by the hand of justice. The Black History of Harlotism in High Life, painted in letters of fire. This, of course, is a book about warning you about leaving home and getting involved in sin, particularly in high society and fashionable society. Here's one of the illustrations. It's a picture of a woman who is seriously gussied up. And I think you may be able to see the shadow of the devil behind her. Well, this book was written by a man named Dirk Maples, who left his Midwestern home, got involved in all this sin. He indulged in fashion, high society, and came home to warn others after he had done that. And this is a well-used book. The book doesn't deteriorate like this from sitting on a shelf all these years. My grandfather used this book. And I think he used it in one way because of all of his 10 children, only one ever moved away beyond walking distance of the old home place. And that one became a school teacher in Philadelphia, so I don't think she was sullied by high society and the sins of the fashion world. I think my grandfather used that book to influence his children. It's just my speculation. It's the kind of thing I think I learned, maybe I just have questions about. Now, moving on, I found in one of my in-laws' old book collections 2 really interesting books on phrenology. Now, for those of you who do not know that much about phrenology, it was a system for assessing moral character and capability. It proposed that the shape of the skull indicates the strength of the brain, and if certain parts of your skull are fuller than others, that tells you about your potential. For instance, on the forehead, the front of the face, the skull, is about science and math. If you have a big, strong forehead, you're predisposed to be a scientist. If you're full on the top, that indicates spirituality, headed for the ministry. But now, of these 2 books, one is really interesting. It is the Illustrated Self-Instructor in Phrenology and Physiology. It's actually a how-to-do-it book. And it has an actual scoring of the owner of this book. Actually, the brother of the owner of this book. It was owned by a physician in the late 1800s, early 1900s, shadow of the Civil War. And he had a scoring done of his brother, H. Ray, a farmer in Hope County, North Carolina. Now, I'm not sure that really informed me about my in-law family, but it did inform me about phrenology. What did I learn? I learned that the phrenologists were really impressive people. They were reformers. They were anti-slavery, anti-corporal punishment. They fought for the women's right to vote. And in the mid-1800s, in Philadelphia and in New York, you had to have your head read. You had to have a reading, a phrenological reading of your capabilities in order to get a job. Kind of like a drug test today. The phrenologist also produced a wonderful set of journals for much of the 1800s. I'm going to read to you what this journal was about. The Phrenological Journal and Life Illustrated, a repository of science, literature, and general intelligence devoted to progressive measures which are calculated to reform, elevate, and improve mankind spiritually, intellectually, and socially. The phrenologists were impressive people. Finally, and this is a mystery to me, this is a puzzle. When I went through my mother's book collection after she died, I found a first printing, first edition of Atlas Shrugged. Now, my mother, how should I say this? She was not an intellectual. She was not well read. So I really have no idea what she made of the concepts in Atlas Shrugged. She was smart enough. She was smart about running a farm and a garden, farm family. So she was a smart woman, but I had no idea she was reading things like Atlas Shrugged. I had the book appraised, first edition, first printing, informally over the telephone by Alibris. And they told me that if I had the dust jacket, it'd be worth $5,000. Unfortunately, I don't have that, so it's probably not worth more than $1,500. One final thing about this book. In the front and in the back, there's a stamp that says, property of Elbert Ivy Memorial Library, Hickory, North Carolina. And it's got the place for the library card. So there are two possibilities here. One is that she bought it at a library sale for 25 cents. The other is that the overdue fees on this book must be incredible. So that's part of my adventure in books. I think if it doesn't give you hard information about your family history and family stories, it can at least ask some questions. So, thank you for listening to my story. Thank you.